Hello and welcome to our webcast. I'm Cole Mertz with Moss Adams, and I'm getting us started for today's session, selecting the right ERP for your construction business. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining. We're pleased to present our continuing professional education webcast series. Before we begin, please keep the following in mind. You can customize how you view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top right of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons that relate to a different aspect of our session. You can download a PDF of today's slides from the Slide Deck and Handouts widget. You can ask questions by typing in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. Today's session offers 1 CPE credit. To receive credit, you must meet the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy requirements. You must attend at least 50 minutes of the session and respond to at least 75% of polling questions. To participate in the polls, please check the button next to your answer within the slide window and click Submit. We'll track your progress and alert you when you've earned CPE credit. You can then click the certificate icon in the CPE Progress widget and download your CPE certificate. Don't worry if you can't download your CPE certificate today. We'll email you a copy in 2 weeks. If attending this webcast in a group, you must complete our group CPE attendance sheet, available in our Slide Deck and Handouts widget to receive credit. Please have all group members sign it and send only 1 sheet per group. CPE credit can only be awarded to participants registered as themselves and isn't available for participants who view the on-demand version. This presentation is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
And now I would like to introduce today's presenters. Kevin Goergen, Senior Manager, Strategy, Technology, and Operations Advisory Practice at Moss Adams, and Chuck Andrews, Director, Strategy, Technology, and Operations Advisory Practice at Moss Adams. Kevin is a manager with the Enterprise Systems Consulting Group at Moss Adams and has been providing ERP selection and implementation services since 2013. He has extensive experience managing complex technology projects from software selection through implementation with a track record of improving operational and financial performance. Kevin provides business process reengineering, software selection, project management, and ERP implementation services for his clients. Chuck has worked in IT and information systems consulting since 1995 with a focus on delivering complex consulting projects. He has extensive experience evaluating and implementing enterprise software systems, including ERP, customer relationship management, learning management, and field service management. Chuck is also specialized in NetSuite implementation and optimization. Chuck previously sat in senior level positions responsible for needs analysis, systems selection and implementation, and professional services management, among others. Chuck holds a Lean Sigma 6 White Belt certification, a Chester Carras negotiation program certification, and is a Microsoft certified project specialist. Their bios and contact information are located in your webcast console for your convenience. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to Kevin to get the presentation started. Kevin.
Thank you so much, Cole. It's a pleasure to be here, everyone, and thank you so much for your attendance today. We're going to be talking about the construction industry challenges. We're going to be talking about planning for a system selection, our system selection methodology, how to identify the right software, as well as implementation strategies for success. And finally, we'll be wrapping up with our Q&A at the tail end of our presentation. With that in mind, Cole, I believe we have our first question for the group here today. I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So for our first CP question, we have, what sector are you operating in the construction industry? A, commercial, B, residential, C, engineering, D, industrial, or E, other. We'll give you a few moments to respond. To respond, please click the button next to the answer you chose and hit submit. If you can't see the submit button, please enlarge the slide viewing area. Give it a few more seconds here. Okay, great. Question is now closed, and back to you, Kevin.
Thank you so much. So it looks like over half of our participants are in the commercial real estate, commercial construction industry, along with residential, as well as 22% saying other. So interested to hear what the other areas are for construction and see if we can align some of what we're talking about today with those other areas of construction. Feel free to write in the chat at any point in time if you responded to the other, and we'll continue on talking about our construction industry challenges. So, in terms of the construction industry, what we found working with our construction clients is that there's an ever-evolving landscape. There's rapid growth in certain areas. There's government dollars being plugged in to the construction industry, and that necessitates changes. I'll say changes to processes, changes to technology. And so hopefully you're here to learn a little bit more about how technology can support that effort and within your business and within the industry as a whole. So we want to make sure that technology is keeping up with regulatory demands and helping optimize workflows, especially with certain, I'll say, government agencies, whether you're working with state or county or local governments, helping to get things approved and move things quickly through the approval process there. And when we talk about technology in terms of where it's best going to support the overall business, we have a need in the construction industry to enhance our productivity as well as our competitiveness within the industry. So what does that mean? It means that we need our bid management software to feed our pipeline. We need our bid management software to feed our contract management solution. These things need to be connected in order to, I'll say, establish, efficiencies within your business. So what does that look like? It looks like a process within your organization that flows not just from Excel, but leveraging a bid management software to then have visibility over your entire pipeline. What is the progress of your bids? What is the stage of those bids within your pipeline? And how do I have visibility over that? Software can help support that effort. And then once we win that business and it becomes a contract, again, we don't want to have duplicate entry. We don't want to have a duplicative effort to input that information into a separate solution. We want our bid management to feed our contract management. And so we want to be able to convert our bids over to our contracts and then again, convert our contracts into jobs or projects and have those connected with relative ease without having to rekey critical data like terms, conditions, our work codes, things of that nature. Once that job or that project is put in place, we then want to have visibility over how we schedule and how we schedule our resources, how we manage those effectively. We want to have visibility over our subcontracts that are potentially in place. And then how does that support our substantiated billing? And then, of course, time tracking and payroll approval. So all of these things, what we're finding, at least in the construction industry, is that these are areas of challenge for our clients, as well as for many, I'll say, operators in the construction industry, because we're leveraging separate systems or disparate systems in each of these different areas. Bid management may be managed in an Excel spreadsheet, for instance. Contracts may be managed in a financial management solution. And then when it comes to operations, our job management is in a completely separate system, which makes it difficult to keep track of not only our time, our scheduling, but also our billing. And of course, our HR solution may also be a separate third-party solution, and where it's difficult to track time back to jobs to understand what is our margin, what is our profitability, what is our cost to complete, what does that look like? And because these systems are potentially disparate, it's very, very difficult for people in the industry to get the right reports, to get the right dashboards, to make good business decisions, because either the information is delayed or the information is in separate systems, and we need to gather this in order to report on it, which obviously is not the most efficient or effective way to do things. Lastly, here we have asset management and field service operations. So those that are conducting field service operations, once the project or the job is complete, we want to be able to transition those customers to our other service line and our other revenue stream. And we want to be able to connect that project that was completed for that pump station or for that particular tower that was erected, for instance. We want to be able to make sure that those that the information that was provided in the upfront project or job is also disseminated to our other departments or our other divisions in order to create an effective business process. And this is where technology can help. This is where technology can help serve you within your business. So the importance of aligning business processes with technology solutions. One, we want to be able to replace any sort of aging software. You want to be able to implement something that is flexible, stable, well supported to accommodate either your future growth or support potential organizational change. We want to be able to remove disparate systems. Disparate systems cause a lot of manual entry, duplicate entry, and oftentimes they're standalone solutions, and so they don't necessarily flow naturally into reports or dashboards. And we need to give specific access to certain people in order for them to have visibility over the information that's residing there. Aligning our business processes with technology also usually enhances our business process or optimizes that to improve our overall efficiency. Typically, we want to acquire construction-specific tools. So whether that's subcontract management, project management, document management, lean tracking, near real-time data capture at the actual site instead of having to collect time cards and then potentially process them a week, 2 weeks, a day or two later. We want tool sets that are near real time, and we want them to be construction specific. And then, of course, why do we want this? We want this to be able to provide us with better decision-making tools in the form of reporting, dashboarding, key performance indicators, or analytics. And that's going to support not only your overall business, but your people and your personnel that are conducting these activities on every single day. In terms of goals for today, we want to be able to provide you with insight on selecting the right construction management software. We want to be able to address your, not just the industry, but also your specific business challenges and how software solutions can help solve those challenges that were mentioned above. We want to empower you to make good business decisions with knowledge and expertise for effective software adoption. So we're also going to be talking about post-selection and implementation support. Looks like we have our next polling question here. Cole, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. For our second CPE question, we have, what current systems are you using to run and operate your business? A, QuickBooks, B, Viewpoint, C, Sage Timberline, D, Procore, E, Other. And then as a quick reminder, if you'd like to receive CPE credit for today's webcast, you will need to respond to at least 3 of the 4 polling questions. Please make sure that you are selecting your answer choice within the slides window and not adding to the Q&A window. Give it a few more seconds here. All right, the question is now closed. Back to you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. Again, we have a fair amount of folks answering other at 42%. And not surprisingly, we do see a lot of our clients, as well as a lot of folks running Viewpoint, Sage Timberline, as well as QuickBooks. It looks like only a small percentage of the people here are utilizing Procore, which I do find as well interesting. I'm wondering if we can also put in the chat what the other solutions that are being utilized, so that way we can potentially talk to them. But these are very common solutions that we do find in the marketplace, and we do find a lot of specifically clients for construction are running. Transitioning over to Chuck. Chuck, we'll be talking about planning for a system selection. Thanks.
So when we look at planning for a system selection, I want to get into a couple of components associated with that. And we'll start with triggers. I always tell people, never go out and migrate a system unless you absolutely have to. And so what we've indicated here is some of the triggers or some of the symptoms that will drive people to a system selection or a system migration. Since it's no picnic to change, again, typically these are pretty stark situations. The first one is pretty cut and dried, and that is your current system is end of life or no longer supported. Some of the other triggers that can drive things forward is simply the fact that the system is not allowing you to deliver on your business model, or you've pivoted into new service lines or new types of business or new types of construction. And while it's serving certain areas of your business, it's not serving other areas. And that can be an organic pivot. It can be an acquisition. But this is another area where we see this. Excessive manual processing, lack of integration is another area that we see where you may have some best of breed components that are not talking. And as a direct result of that, you're seeing less than decent value out of that combination of systems and a lot of heavy lifting. Lack of data entry controls, so you're not keeping folks between swim lanes and making certain that your data is standardized. You can't get out of the system what you need to in terms of reporting. One of the most common things I look at here is, what does my margin truly look like by project? And so I can understand what types of project are generating good margin and what types of project aren't. Vocal frustration with the system, and I'll just kind of put this to the group. If you have does anyone have a less than flattering nickname for your current system? That's one of the other key symptoms that we see. And 9 here, just to cover this one again, is when you're pivoting, again, organic or through acquisition, that tends to introduce new requirements that may or may not be served by your current system. And when we look at preparing for a system selection, One of the biggest things I look at here is preparation is a thing when we're looking at system selections, and the system selection truly is a project. It's an initiative. It's not taking a call from a vendor and saying, "Yeah, that sounds great. Let's migrate from here, from A to B." There's a lot of introspection involved. So one of the big things you want to look at is that you want to be clear on what you're trying to accomplish. You've got to have a mission. You got to have a vision, and also you have to consider all of the stakeholders that are contributing to the success of your organization and delivering on your business model, and how do they fit into the system. How do you enable their components? You definitely need to look at getting committees together, understanding who process owners are and who needs to be on the team to get this done, and build a plan for that selection. When we look at best practices for system selections, the first one I think is very important. You have to take a look at your strategic plan. How does my strategic plan drive my technical objectives? If technology isn't helping me deliver on my business plan, why am I doing it? And so I think that strategic alignment is huge when you're looking at system selections. That allows you to look at what a future business process needs to be based on how far you're looking down the road. I always tell people that when you're looking strategically, you're looking at your business plan and projecting where you need to be. You're going to be wrong to an extent, but you have to be as right as you can be. You can't ignore the forward look. Otherwise, you end up migrating to a new system too aggressively, and you don't get the value out of the system that you do select. When you're looking at putting your team together, think about a cross-functional team. Understand you need the voice of business development. You need the voice of the folks that are delivering on the projects, and you need the voice of the folks that are generating the billing, and also the back office, so that you're looking at things horizontally across your organization. There needs to be strong project management so you're able to move things forward and not stymie and get into analysis leads to paralysis. And this is an important one. You need to be vendor agnostic. You need to understand what vendors are out there, but you need to come up with the requirements that you need, and you need to be careful about letting a software vendor drive those requirements for you. They're all going to have best practices. They all have great solutions, but you need to understand your internal business first. And then always think about change management and communication as you're going through this process. That's why I think that pulling people into the system selection up front helps you later on when you're implementing, because you've got a team that's smart about where you're going from a strategic standpoint. So I wanted to review the system selection methodology that's employed by Moss Adams. We use a structured framework that consists of 4 phases, and these 4 phases are gated. You don't go from one phase to another one until you have the decision support that you need from the phase that you're currently in. And it's relatively simple. It consists of a project initiation, internal diligence, provider evaluation, and provider engagement. The project initiation, I've touched on a lot of that in planning, but you basically need to come up with a project charter, your steering committee. Understand who's on your project team that might be outside of that project committee in terms of subject matter experts, process owners. In some cases, when you're doing customer-facing work, you might want to bring a specific customer into the mix when you're dealing with high involvement sales, particularly when it's recurring revenue. You definitely need to have a confirmed scope and a project plan. What are we getting after, so that you know what done is going to look like? When you look at the internal diligence phase, I think this is the most important and probably one of the heavier phases. This is where you look at the strategic alignment. You look at your business processes through the lens of that strategic alignment, and get into requirements elicitation. What do I need? And you pay particular attention to gaps or points of friction that you're experiencing right now. The decision support that comes out of an internal diligence phase should be strategic objectives, prioritized requirements by process flow overviews, and day in the life scenarios. And we'll come back to day in the life scenarios when we get to provider engagement. But you need to kind of document, what do we do a lot of? What do people spend their days doing? And then I guess on the day in the life scenarios, getting back to that, you may have heard those in the past referred to as user stories, demonstration scripts, things like that. But the idea is understanding what it is you do, particularly when it's a repetitive task. When you get into the provider evaluation, this is where you're looking at getting your RFP pulled together, which should include the prioritized requirements that you came up with in your diligence phase. You have to identify solutions. And this is the point where you start looking at vendors. And I will say in the internal diligence phase, a software vendor should not be involved there. Otherwise, you're boxing all the other software vendors out. The provider evaluation phase, the decision support that should fall out of that. Solution provider profiles. Who are they? Who do they serve? How does their balance sheet look? Are they looking to be acquired? You need to not only understand what solution they bring to the table, but as far as you can tell, what's next for their business. And are your futures aligning, or are they misaligned as far as where that solution provider is going to go? The other decision support that comes out of that with your RFP responses should be scored requirements quantitatively based on how risky it is to deliver that requirement. That leads me to the requirements risk profile. Which requirements are a high risk? Even if a solution provider brings 90% of what you need, the most important questions you need to ask and mitigate the risk for are the 10% that they're going to struggle with, and figuring out how you're going to address that. Finally, you've got initial cost estimates. And at this point, you should generally be able to, if you're evaluating a half a dozen providers, once you've got your RFPs back, you should be able to nail that down to 2 to 3 providers that you want to come in and provide a demonstration for your organization and go through some discovery with your organization to a deeper level. This is where you get into provider engagement. And under provider engagement, you need to have demonstration scripts for your providers that are based on relevant day in the life scenarios for your business model and how you go about that business model. You need to have discovery sessions with the providers so that you can review those day in the life scenarios and allow that provider to ask some pointed questions about how they can serve you. When you have a vendor come in and demonstrate, you need to score those demonstrations based on those demonstration scripts. Key things that you're looking for. How intuitive is the user interface? How long does a task take? Are there any red flags about any specific task that is key to your organization? You have to get into reference checking. And then once you've gone through reference checking, selection and negotiation. Who are you going to move forward with? Not only in terms of the author of the system, but also who's going to implement it, which in many cases are 2 different organizations. The decision support that falls out of that is going to be the demonstration score analysis. So you look at your scores and figure out which system is the lead dog, if you will. The requirements risk analysis, which is where you go back and revisit your risk profile based on how the demos went. You may have uncovered some things that indicate that while they said they could deliver something, maybe they can't deliver it as well or as risk-free as you thought. Final cost estimates and reference feedback are also some decision support that you gain during that provider engagement. The idea behind a framework of this type is to increase your decision support for the system selection. And as decision support increases, the risk of selecting a misaligned solution is going to be reduced. And so really a system selection to me is the ultimate exercise in mitigating risk. How do I run a system that is going to reduce the risk of me not being able to deliver my business plan? And I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin, and he's going to talk about identifying the right software solutions.
Thanks so much, Chuck. I appreciate that. So first and foremost is I want to narrow in on that phase two that Chuck was referring to in the prior diagram, and that's internal diligence. It's understanding what is important to you. So not only defining what is success for your overall selection project and your implementation, but what are the overall goals of the organization and how do they align? How does this project align with that? Identifying what is unique to you in terms of how you compete or how you want to compete in the marketplace, and what areas of the business should be the focus for your system selection as well as your implementation effort post-selection. So some of the things that we hear from clients is, the new system must support multiple revenue streams with a focus on complex and high-value projects, as well as field service management. And these types of organizations, they have multiple revenue streams, potentially in multiple divisions of the organization, operating in maybe multiple states, and so they're looking for a comprehensive solution that's going to cover all of their bases. Obviously, a system has to grow and scale with the organization, not only serving the current markets, but also scale to something like other states or other markets that you're looking to serve. Seamless integration with existing systems that aren't up for replacement. This is something that's so key when you're looking at that internal diligence. What is not up for replacement? In the chat, there was some mention of alternative systems like Sage Intacct, Great Plains, Bluebeam, for instance. Some of these systems you'll want to have integrations with. Bluebeam being a great example, has open API and it integrates with other software applications. So that would likely not be something that would be up for replacement when you're evaluating certain systems or new systems, but you would rather want to integrate and leverage the capabilities that you've built out already within something like Bluebeam, for instance. Oftentimes you're looking to replace either project accounting capabilities, cost to complete, project-based billing, the substantiated billing piece, or percentage complete tracking. You're oftentimes lacking some of these capabilities in terms of either reporting or dashboarding or KPIs, or tracking critical metrics, or taking too much time, energy, or effort on your team's behalf, when a system could actually support that relatively simply out of the box. And then I'll touch on workflows, approvals, alerts, and notifications to help automate your manual processes. How do we get, for instance, a bid or out to our potential customer faster through making sure that it goes through the necessary folks in our organization for approval? How do we get our time entered and approved faster for payroll, and faster for tracking our actual budget to actual on our work codes, things of that nature. So, what are other strategic initiatives that you find within your organization or within the business? And I believe that leads us into our next polling question.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So for our third question, we have, what are your strategic objectives when selecting the next software to support your business? A, improve efficiency. B, automate processes. C, reduce cost. Or D, other. And then as a quick reminder, you do have the option to submit questions for the presenters in the Q&A window. We do have quite a bit of content to cover today, so if we don't have time to respond during the webcast, we will follow up with you afterwards. Give it about 5-10 more seconds here to get your questions in, or sorry, your answers in. All right, the question is now closed. Back to you, Kevin.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So improve efficiency as well as automate processes is, overwhelming majority. And then a certain respondents said other. And again, I'm interested to hear what your perspective is on the strategic objective for your organization. What falls under the category of other? And related to this, we're going to be talking about, excuse me, there we go. We're going to be talking about some of the more key criteria of what folks like you are looking for in out in this space. So supporting with support for opportunity or bid management, being able to track bids, being able to have a proper documentation in terms of bid related documents and information. These are areas where uh, people want support, people want to have enhanced capabilities, and they want to be able to leverage technology in order to do that. They want to make sure that their bids are accurate, that they're competitive, and that the solutions that they're going to be looking at are going to support either integrations with CAD software, their bid or takeoff software, or even subcontract management software as part of that bid process. We maybe need to elicit bids from our subcontractors and have those quotes as part of our overall pricing and as part of our overall delivery to the owner or to the GC or to whoever the customer may be in this case. Other areas are project management and visibility. You want to be able to track your jobs and track the progress within those jobs via work codes or other task related elements in near real time. So that access to real-time data is so critical for especially folks that are out in the field and for those folks that are working out in the back office that are monitoring the actual progress. They want to be alerted or notified if something is over budget, goes over budget. They want to be alerted or notified if a piece of equipment breaks down. And so that way we can react faster to changes or exceptions that are happening in near real time. What else does this provide? Well, it provides upper management with near real time visibility on projects as well as other project stakeholders. So these are some of the aspects in terms of project management or job management visibility that that a lot of folks are looking for in terms of new solutions. So talking again a little bit more about subcontract management, looking internal to your processes and how are we managing this information that's coming from our subs. It could be compliance related issues related to not adhering to our specific formats for maybe for payment processing, maybe for documentation, things of that nature. But we also want to ensure that we're getting timely and accurate payments to subcontractors, and that may be as part of our strategy or part of how we want to compete is enabling our contractors to submit bills or documentation via a portal or via giving limited access to our system in order to track these things, in order to support our substantiated billing, and in order to track our subcontractor performance and overall quality. Moving on, change order management. So again, this is another area, specific in construction where managing those change orders can be complex. It can be time consuming, and we need software to enhance our overall productivity in this area. So when we don't handle change orders appropriately, there's an impact on timelines. Oftentimes, those scope changes don't get relayed to the necessary team members, and thus, again, delaying project timelines, impacting budget, and therefore our our timing of what we said we could do is off. Our budget of what we said we could accomplish in on that particular work code or multiple work codes is again off. So we want a solution that's going to enable change order management, that's going to tie back to that original contract and allow for the appropriate workflows and approvals throughout this through a system in order to support our overall business processes and support delivery of projects that are on time, on budget, and within the agreed upon scope. Other areas, we had talked about this as well, which is substantiated billing from the field. So we need to be able to substantiate our billing through accurate documentation, whether that's photos of completed tasks or photos of completed work codes, whether that is supported documentation for changes to the original, I'll say the original design. And what does that mean when we can't support that, or we're trying to find that in a specific maybe shared folder, or certain people don't have access to that? Maybe we're emailing documentation from from somebody out in the field, and then somebody has to gather that information, like a project coordinator or something, or a project biller has to gather all this information and then put it together in order to substantiate the bill, in order for it to go out to our customer. It sometimes takes too long of a process to just to get that invoice out, and therefore delays in payment and delays in cash flow really affect the overall business. So certain systems allow for integration from the field, meaning real-time support of, hey, here's all the documentation, here's our time entries, here's our subcontract billing and support there. And now that we have everything pulled together, we can substantiate that billing with relative ease, send out the invoice with the accompanying documentation. These are some of the solutions that that folks are really looking towards in terms of finding, I'll say, better ways of doing their normal day-to-day activities. And then, of course, how does this tie into our back office operations? So time approval process is a big one. How many different solutions are you using to capture time? You probably have certain folks that are in the office that are working on different projects that are attributing their time, and maybe that's overtime costs, to to a multitude of projects. In managing a multitude of projects, that's probably one time entry solution. Then you have supervisors, foremen, or others that also may be out in the field or potentially working in the office that are also entering their time against certain activities or certain codes. And then you have your workers, your operators that are on site. And in some cases, they may be going from one site to another site within a day. And in other cases, they may be working under one, I'll say, role or another role with a completely different rate on a different project. And so there are challenges that a lot of construction folks come across, especially within time tracking, that make it relatively complex. And then, of course, those costs need to be able to flow naturally back to your job, back to the project, in order to make sure that the margins are there, that your profitability is there as well. So integrations with time tracking, with payroll, as well as with job management and your financials are so critical. And these are some of the areas that that a lot of folks are finding challenges. And then when we put all of these things together, again, talking about that internal diligence, talking about what are some of the strategic objectives that you're looking to accomplish with a potential new system, we have to come up with a scope of really looking at the entire organization, how things flow, and and making sure that everything is, I'll say, from a diligence standpoint, that everything is scoped out appropriately, so that way when you do or are transitioning from the system selection effort into an implementation, you have all of this diligence at your fingertips. So from financial management and sales management to construction, field service, maybe even human resource management, and potentially even supply chain management. How are these all connected? Not only in your business, but how are these connected within one system, or maybe supporting systems that have a pre-written integration? How how strong your diligence is translates into, I'll say, some of the strength that you'll find in terms of software solutions. So migrating away from that internal diligence to evaluating those vendors and the overall software solution, here are some of those leading practices of what to look for. You want to have a solution that's going to be that has available support, training, and obviously your customer service is so critical when evaluating a provider. So these are kind of the bare minimum. What does that look like in terms of, are they local resources? Are they regional? Are they in the U.S.? Are they in Canada? Where are these teams? And then how does that support your organization? Is that the level of support that you need? What customization options are there? So we always go into system selections with, we want out-of-the-box features, but oftentimes there may need to be some tailoring of the solution or customizing of the solution to meet your overall business needs. So what is their ability to customize the software, or your ability to customize the software to fit those specific needs? Maybe it's not, maybe they do have the AIA billing format, but maybe some of your customers don't necessarily require that. They require a specific billing format. Can we customize that invoice, for instance, in order to fit our needs or their needs? Is the software scalable? Is it going to scale with your business as you grow? Will it also scale, especially if you're getting into different revenue streams, as we had mentioned before, or scaling into different markets or serving different customers? Security, and reliability. Obviously, those are table stakes in terms of support. Nowadays, most of these software systems are software as a service, and so you want to be sure that your information and your data is secure, and that they're compliant with SOC 2 requirements, as well as potentially other requirements, especially when you're talking about personal identifiable information in terms of maybe an HRIS, for example. And then customer references. What do existing customers that are of the same size of your organization, similar scope in terms of what you've already scoped out, and in terms of what's up for replacement, what do they have to say about not only the system that they're using, but about the provider that has helped them through implementation, and as well as any both positive and negative feedback. And then some key features to look for. You want to look for solutions that are going to be mobile enabled, that are going to have real-time dashboards and reporting, that are going to be able to be integrated seamlessly with existing systems as well as your existing workflows. And we want to be able to streamline those repetitive tasks through automation. And lastly, just a couple of case studies here for in this area, and talking about a couple of success stories. So I'll talk about Cirques Construction, Hayden Tower, and Bell Company. These are all fall within the construction industry, and they were all looking for solutions to reduce their overall complexity in terms of systems, but also business processes. They were looking to streamline their project management, reporting, as well as payroll and billing areas of their business, and make sure that that there was reduced complexity in terms of enabling that more real-time transaction processing, enhancing their project management capabilities, and overall finding solutions that are going to replace aging software technology. And then I'm going to pass it back over to Chuck in terms of talking about implementation strategies for success.
Thanks, Kevin. When you get to moving from the selection effort and pivoting into implementation, there are some things that you want to definitely take into consideration. We went over a rather structured selection process designed to provide decision support. And you want to make certain that you leverage what you learned in the selection process as you pivot to implementation, right down to authoring the statement of work with the provider that's going to be implementing the solution, to make certain that you're addressing that. Also using the risk analysis in your systems integration and your user acceptance testing. You want to look at a phased approach. How do I eat the elephant? If there are several things that you're addressing as far as systems, several processes that are being touched, what do I consider my minimum viable product to get me to phase one? And then how do I layer in additional components of the solution with minimal disruption to the business? You definitely want to continue your stakeholder involvement, as we mentioned, throughout the selection process, and have a well-defined scope so that you understand, if you're doing a phased approach, what's happening when, and ensure I'm not pulling things forward that I shouldn't be. And typically, if you've gone through enough of the internal diligence, your scope creep tends to be minimal. And I think we're coming up on our next polling question, so I'll pass it back.
Great, thanks, Chuck. For our final CP question, we have, in your opinion, what contributes to a successful implementation? A, executive sponsorship and management buy-in. B, alignment of goals. C, quality training. D, well-defined scope. Or E, other. For those of you who would like a copy of today's slides, you can download them from the folder that says slide deck and handouts. And also, we will be sending out the slides via email tomorrow, along with a recording of the webcast. Give the final question a few more seconds to get your responses in. Okay, the question is now closed. Back to you, Chuck.
Thanks very much. And in looking at the responses, I definitely agree executive sponsorship and management buy-in is huge for a number of reasons. I think that the three items that were selected below in addition aren't really possible unless you have executive sponsorship and management buy-in, understand the true cost of what you're doing. Typically, when I engage with clients, I always tell them this is going to cost more and take longer than you think if you're going to have a successful selection as well as a successful implementation. Another important element on the implementation strategies to be successful is change management. You can't ignore this. You have to look at how migrating to a new system or implementing a new system or number of new systems, if you're in a best of breed scenario, is going to impact the organization, how it's going to impact horizontal processes, and basically come up with a change management plan to address the impact to the organization. Who needs to be informed about the changes? How do we train to these changes? And making certain that folks don't feel left out and that we're not dropping things on them. I would say that when we look across implementation failures, it's seldom the system. generally it is adoption and training. And so change management is going to help you figure out how does that training program need to look, and understand you own training, the provider doesn't. They may assist with training, but it's your business process and it's your business plan. And so it's very important that your organization is deeply involved in change management and the training that's developed as a result of looking into that. And obviously, with anything else, you definitely need to have effective project management to make certain that that change management effort is moving forward. You definitely want to look at measuring return on investment, understand what your benchmarks are, what does success look like. Take a look at your efficiency gains. How does that look on maybe an accounts payable side? How many transactions do I have that don't have a purchase order or a purchase requisition? How am I moving people to compliance in certain areas? You definitely want to look at cost savings in terms of reduced errors. And you want to look at total cost of ownership and the contribution that the system is making to reduction of costs. And so measuring ROI, I think, is very important in terms of figuring out whether or not you've been successful. And I'll turn it back over to Kevin to close us out.
Thanks so much, Chuck. I really appreciate that. We have about 4 minutes or so left, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to review what we went through today. So the goal was to provide you with insights on selecting the right construction management software. Hopefully we provided that in terms of focusing on addressing specific industry as well as your business challenges, and how technology solutions can help solve those complex problems. We hope that we empowered you with knowledge and expertise for not only effective software selection, but also effective software adoption. And now that we're transitioning over to the final pieces of the presentation, we'll open it up to any sort of questions that you may have from the audience. You can put those in the Q&A. We will try to address as many as we can. So one question is, how long does a system selection typically take? And that's a great question. So in terms of a system selection, it obviously depends upon what is in scope in terms of which business process areas and what systems are up for replacement. So something that's quite expansive in terms of maybe a financial management solution as well as an HRIS, for the example that was provided in the slide, that might take anywhere between 3 months to 5 months. It might take anywhere between maybe 4 to 6 months to go through each of those different steps and do the internal diligence that's required in order to support, say, your effective decision at the end. But the benefit of doing some of those activities is one, the internal diligence is done by a third party that's agnostic, and the diligence that is done is yours to keep. And so oftentimes that leads to not only better implementations through some of I'll say the leading practices that we provided, but also faster implementations, because one of the things that implementers will do is they'll want to do a deep dive on your business processes before they get started in terms of training or designing on the software solution. Another question is, who specifically should be involved in the system selection process? Great. We typically see we want executive sponsors to be involved in the system selection process to provide that leadership and guidance, as well as a steering committee to help with decision making along the way, and subject matter experts in the various areas of your business that are going to be, I'll say, not only supporting this system selection effort in terms of internal diligence, but also potentially providing support for implementation. And I think we're at about time, so I wanted to thank everybody for their time today, and we're available for any follow-up questions that you may have. We'll be sure to answer those if you email us. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Kevin and Chuck, for a great discussion today. I also want to thank the audience for being engaged and submitting your questions to help guide today's conversation. If we didn't have time to answer yours, we will follow up with you after the webcast. Also, feel free to reach out to our presenters if you have additional questions. Their contact information is in your console. There are a number of resources in the upper right-hand corner of your user console that may be of interest to this audience, so definitely check that out. If you have met all CPE requirements, your certificate is available to download now in the CPE progress window. A copy will be emailed within 2 weeks should you have difficulty downloading it now. As a reminder, if you attended today's presentation in a group and like to receive CPE credit, you must complete the group attendance sheet found in your console. Finally, here is a link to an online survey for today's presentation. Thank you for joining our webcast, and we'll hope you join us again next time. Thank you.